Christina here from ContentUK, a community connecting and supporting UK content marketers. Today we're joined for a webinar with Masooma Memon, all about how to use Twitter to build authentic relationships, build your personal brand, and connect with your target audience. And Masooma is a freelance content writer, and she works with really big tech SaaS company names such as Hootsuite, Trello, Databox, etc. And a lot of her work she attributes to her use of Twitter and really using it to its max potential. So she'll be sharing a lot of the tips that she's learned along the way in a 20-minute webinar, and we'll then jump to a Q&A where I put to her questions that the Twitter community had about how to use the Twitter platform in the best way possible. Before I pass over to Masooma, just a little bit more about ContentUK if it's your first time here. As I mentioned, we're a wonderful community for UK content marketers, both in-house and freelance. And this comes in the form of a very supportive and close-knit Slack community, as well as virtual meetups, one-to-one meetups, workshops, Q&As with content experts, and special discounts for different content tools and events. You can find out more and learn about the community if you head over to contentuk.co. I hope to see you there. And now let's pass over to Masooma. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Masooma. Happy to be doing this webinar for you. We're going to be talking about how to use Twitter to build authentic relationships. So the way I see it, a lot in our businesses is dependent on building genuine relationships with people before we work with them, collaborate with them, etc. So for instance, let's say, would you work with somebody who you already know, or would you work with somebody you know nothing about and have to work to build relationship or build a trust since the start? You'd work with the one you already know, isn't it? So this is why I focus on building relationships on Twitter. It has reaped a lot for me, and I am hoping that whatever I share with you today helps you replicate the process and get more in life. So before we dive in, let me just quickly introduce myself. I am a freelance writer for SaaS and productivity enthusiast, and I love myself a good cake anytime. So maybe I should even have it after this webinar and satisfactorily answering your questions. So I think that's about it about me. I've got a lot from Twitter, and I'm excited to share whatever I've learned with you. Let's dive in. So how to use Twitter to build authentic relationships. Let's get started. What you'll learn today is how you can get customers or clients from Twitter and grow your network. The 3 elements that you will need to make relationships over here. The 6 steps that you need to keep in mind as you proceed. And lastly, I will leave you with the 3 action step plan. You need to take these 3 actions right away so that you can start with building your genuine relationships on Twitter. So let's dive in. First, how can Twitter help you? Number 1, you can get clients. If you are being proactive in the way you are engaging and interacting with your prospects, you can actually land those clients or convert them into your customers. Number 1. Number 2, you can grow your network. I am part of 2 marketing communities, 2 communities basically, one that of freelancers and another that of marketers, and they are such a support. So you can grow your network via Twitter as well. And third, you can get more opportunities. For instance, this webinar is a direct result of Twitter. I came to know Christina from Twitter, and then we moved on to building our relationship further on LinkedIn, and finally we came up with this webinar. So it's all the way you interact with the people that you can get more and more opportunities. I've also been invited as a guest at in Twitter chats, so that's another opportunity. If you are looking to get featured in some publications, you can also get that via Twitter. Or if you are into link building, getting links for your site or specific pages, you can also get that from Twitter. So these are exactly the things that you can get from Twitter, all by building authentic relationships. So let's start with the 3 elements that you need for success. Number 1 is engagement, number 2 is value, and number 3 is authenticity. All 3 of these are tied together with one factor, which is consistency. You need to be consistent in 3 different ways. 1, in showing up daily. If you are not showing up daily or weekly, you are not leaving a memorable impression, and you cannot expect to make any friends or relationships if you are not being consistent in your efforts. So because everyone has a lot on our plate. So when they have a lot on their plate, you have to leave a mark on them. You have to show up regularly. This is how they will start to remember you, and you will be able to build your relationship with them. Therefore, the first step is being consistent in showing up and posting on Twitter. Next, you need to be consistent with your tone of voice and style. You need to have a uniform style you use on Twitter. For instance, there's a selected way in which I use emojis on Twitter. There is also a selected voice that I use on Twitter. I try to be as hopeful as I can be, as optimistic as I can be. This is important because nobody likes to talk to a Debbie Downer. In fact, there's a psychological study that says that people like others who are more positive, who have a positive outlook to life, and it's very much applicable to social as well, which is why you need to uh, polish your tone of voice and style. Thirdly, you also need to be consistent in the content that you share. For instance, I am usually talking about writing tips, quotes from the content marketing world, as well as quotes on writing. And I am also sharing BTS content on what I'm working on, what I'm excited to dive into, etc. So this tells people what they can expect from my Twitter feed. And the point to having a consistency in the content you share on Twitter is that the more you niche down, the more people are able to recognize you as an authority on those topics, and the more they will refer to your feed, or they will ask other people to follow you when they know what you talk about, which is why you need to be consistent in the content you share. Now that we're done with consistency, let's talk about the first element that helps you succeed on Twitter, which is engagement. You can engage in 4 different ways. You can join Twitter chats, leave comments, make Twitter lists, and support others. The thing about joining Twitter chats is that you can easily tap into communities. For instance, if you are interested in tapping into a community of marketers, you can join a Twitter chat where only marketers participate. Or if you want to be talking to other freelancers, or just having a market of female freelancers, there's always a Twitter chat for specific audiences. The good part about Twitter chats is that it helps you meet people on a weekly basis, which gives you an opportunity to leave a mark on them. You become familiar among the community, the rest of the community becomes familiar, and you can develop better relationships and engage regularly with people over there. So make sure you are taking out at least 1 hour to join one Twitter chat daily. This is extremely important if you're serious about making relationships on Twitter, because otherwise it would slow your pace when it comes to making relationships. You could be leaving comments, but you cannot be doing it as regularly as you're joining chats or talking on matters of common interest, which is why I recommend you join Twitter chats. Next up, you leave comments, but please make sure that you're not leaving boring comments or comments that don't add value. When you write comments that add value, people are going to pause and listen to you, because they understand that you have taken the time to write such an interesting comment, such a thoughtful comment. Therefore, leave comments that are meaningful. A few ways you can leave meaningful comments include sharing your opinion, or if you do not agree with the other person, telling them why you don't agree, or telling them something related to that, what they've shared. You can always leave a question in the comment you make also. This will help you grow the conversation further. You can have a back and forth of tweets if you leave questions and ask the other person what they think. Next, Twitter lists are more about managing the way you're interacting with people. What Twitter lists do is that you add specific people in specific lists. When you make public Twitter lists, they are accessible to all others, and if you are making private Twitter lists, they are only visible to you, and the people you are adding on those lists will not be notified that they've been added to your Twitter list. So for instance, if I am interacting with people who are bloggers and freelancers and marketers, I have 3 different lists for them. And whenever, let's say I have 10 minutes, so what I'm going to do is, and I want to interact with freelancers, I'm going to open up the list of freelancers in my feed, and the list will only show me tweets from freelancers, and I can better engage with that community. This is how Twitter lists work, and you would see that there's a lot of organization in the way you are engaging with people when you make lists. So it's best you tap into them for your own benefit. Next, support others. There are lots of Friday follow threads. There are also you could also be sharing other people's content. You could also be giving a shout out to them, or if you're retweeting their comments, you could add a comment or just retweet it. There are just plenty of ways you can support people. So go ahead, engage with people by supporting them. One another way you can engage with people is by writing tweets that encourage people to engage with you. These could be tweets that ask questions, or you could be hosting polls. I have an example of Rebecca over here. She's sharing 7 golden rules of social media, but she's adding a question. Now, if you're normally scrolling past this tweet, you would read it, find it valuable, and you would click like. But when you see what would you add to it, you take the time to engage with the person and add your 2 cents to this thread. So this is how she is encouraging engagement, and you can follow suit. And like I said, you have to leave engaging comments. Another important aspect of leaving engaging comments is remembering what you were talking about with the other person. This helps you pick up the conversation from the last time. If you read this comment, you would see that Andra remembers what she was talking to with Robin, and therefore she is able to leave her more meaningful comment that makes Robin feel special, because she's talking about Summers and she's talking about what she believes in, etc. And she's sharing her opinion. It's not an awesome or great, it's just a bland comment. It's not like that. Next up, provide value. You can provide value in the content you post, in the comments you make, and in the chat, the contributions you make. When you are posting tweets, make sure they're valuable. If someone can learn something from you, you're providing pure value to them. So make sure you share what you've learned, what you are observing, etc. When you take the time to provide value, you will definitely get noticed. But just make sure that what you're sharing is relevant to your audience. The more you know audience here, it's better, because you'll be providing them exactly what they're looking for. You won't be just talking about stuff that they're not interested in. Another point to keep in mind over here is that make your Twitter feed for your readers. It's not for you. So please don't rent out, etc. Please make sure that what they read, they find interesting. Next, the comments you make can also add value. When you're sharing, when you're writing comments, that comment goes on to your followers feed as well. For instance, if I've commented on someone's tweet, it would say Masooma commented on this, and someone else can also read that, and if it's meaningful enough, they will find it valuable, and they can also even jump into the conversation, and you can encourage more conversations with more people at one time, which is why it's important you add value via your comments as well. Lastly, the chat contributions you make should also be valuable. Don't hop on to a chat to just listen to what people are saying, or say, oh yes I agree, or yes I disagree. No, go on to share what you have learned. This is going to help you. Not only are chat participants going to see that you're providing value, but your comments in the chat will also be viewed by others in your follower list, and they will also find it valuable. In fact, there was this one Twitter chat that I joined, and the person, in fact, this was the first time I joined this Twitter chat, and this other person saw my comments and he found them valuable enough that he went on to my site, hopped onto my blog and read it and liked it and left me an email that he would want to work with me, and we've actually been having good working terms since then. So it's about what you're contributing to the community, and they will come to you if you are providing enough value. Okay, since we're talking about providing value and engaging with people, let's also talk about what you should tweet. I have 4 things for you. It could be educational content, behind the scene content, curated content, something that people can relate to. Again, the more you know your audience, the more you can curate content better according to their interests, and you can also make further jokes that are jokes or anything else. Like this example is that of a joke that is relatable to them, and tweet content like that. I also have an example of an educational content for you over here. David talks about business writing 101, and it's very simple, but it's pretty valuable. And if you want, you can also add a question to it, that what would you add to this list, and engage further with your audience. Moving on, we have the third point, authenticity. Why I thought this is important to add to this list is because you have to show your personality. You have to be yourself. Both of these points help you make the entire process of building relationships on Twitter effortless. Let's say you like a humorous voice. I'm a fan of that voice, but I did not pursue it because I know that I'm not such a good not very good with jokes. So I did not go ahead and make that part of my voice, because that would have made it difficult for me to be myself on Twitter, to leave comments or tweets, and it would have made it difficult for me to dedicate time to Twitter, which is what would have caused a friction in building relationships. So I would recommend that you be yourself, show your personality, be vulnerable. Instead of being fake, just be yourself, be human. People love to connect with others on a human level. We know that no one is so well put together, so there's no harm in being vulnerable. You can talk to people like you would talk to people on an ordinary day when you go do the groceries, etc. So just make sure that even in the business world, it's the same. The way you make relationships outside, it's the same that way, which is why I think it's important that you be authentic in your interactions with the people, in the content you post. It will make things very easy for you, less time consuming, and you would be able to make more relationships in a shorter time. Here's an example of a personality showing tweet. Now Tim over here is showing his voice. He's just saying I'm haircut, or his audience knows him. He is just making a joke, and he's just celebrating that he's just had a haircut, and it's personality driven. It's very much showing his voice. Okay, we're heading to the wrap up part now, but before that I have 6 tips for you. Let's start with the first one. Make people feel special, but don't go overboard with it. Why you need to do this is so that they remember, but you have to remember that you don't have to go overboard. You don't need, it doesn't have to feel that you are stalking them. You don't want to look like Joe Goldberg from You, right? So you have to make people feel special. If you're listening close, remembering what people are talking to you about or what they're talking about on their Twitter profiles, you can definitely make them feel special. Then a very important point, go in with a results free mindset. Do not think that I'm going to try this approach for about like 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, and I'm going to be seeing what it's going to reap me. Please, relationship building takes a lot of time, as is the case in real life. You take it to step 1, step 2, step 3. You do not take it to step 10 in the start, do you? So you have to take an approach of making friends, and you have to go with a results free mindset. Third, you have to take a learning approach. You could be wrong or you could be right. Others could be wrong and they could be right, but you don't have to fight about it, because the more gentler you are in your approach, or the more explanatory you are in why you agree or disagree with something, the better it is. Because like we said, nobody likes people who are negative, or nobody even likes people who are renting, because this is another important point that we're going to get to. Nobody wants you to rant on Twitter. Please don't do that. It's going to annoy them. Before I get to the point, let's get to the fourth tip I have for you is don't go direct message them in the first go. You don't want to directly message them with an offer or just saying that, hi, how are you doing? No, please don't take to the DM in the first step. You need to be interactive with people first, in their feed via Twitter chats, which is a fast forward way of making relationships, before you go on to DM them. Because eh, people might think that you just want to sell them. You don't want to sell them. You want to earn their trust first, and then you might want to work with them. So don't go about DMing them. Take the chance, see when it is the right time to DM. Just go on to DM then. Like, then you don't want to be tweeting in bursts. This is important, because tweeting in bursts is basically sitting in an hour and then making lots of tweets around that time. No, you want to be in people's feeds, but you don't want to be at for 1 hour. You want to be at spaced time differences. So you could either use a scheduler, or you could be tweeting them yourself at that time. It could be your commute, it could be your lunch hour or something when you're tweeting. But please, don't tweet in bursts. It's very annoying. People don't want to see one tweet after another tweet from you in just the span of an hour. So that, and then we were already talking about not renting. This is also important, because you have to make your Twitter feed about people. You have to make it about what interests people, and you have to make it about providing value. You don't have to rent. A client does this, or this happened, or my week is, yes, it's okay to talk about it, because you're being human. Once in a while you can talk about it, but you cannot just keep talking about all these things. If your feed is going to be filled about with complaints, nobody is going to be interested in that feed. So please don't do that. And lastly, whenever you're doing something, whether that's following somebody, messaging them, or commenting with them, always ask yourself, How would I react to this? If you get the answer, yes, I would be fine with it, then go ahead and do it. If you get the answer, no, please don't do it with others, because that would make them feel uncomfortable. So think of it like this: if something makes you uncomfortable, it could also be making other people uncomfortable. Keep it in mind. Lastly, I have 3 action steps for you. You have to understand your goals. So before you proceed, please take a piece of paper and decide what your goals are from Twitter. Do you want to increase brand awareness, or do you want to make more sales, etc.? Even if you are planning to make more sales, you have to be mindful of taking the lead warming approach rather than cold pitching people. So you have to just decide what your goals are. It's based on this that you're going to be taking your next steps. Then go ahead and, on second point, go ahead and define your voice and style. Tell yourself what you're going to be talking about. Write 4 5 things that you are best at, and then maybe shortlist them if you find it suitable, and talk only those things. Define what your voice is going to be, how you're going to be writing your tweets, and make sure you know what sort of content you're going to be putting out. This, which is what brings us to the third step: you need to have an engagement plan and a content plan. When are you going to be writing your content? Are you going to be pre-preparing it? Are you going to be putting it in a scheduler? When are you going to be posting your tweets? When are you going to be engaging with people? Dedicate specific hours to this, or the specific time could be 10 minutes. Once you're done with your work, take 10 minutes off work, or go on Twitter and then get back to your work. Do something like that. And you also need to have an engagement plan. Would you be moving forward after this by joining Twitter chats? Would you be moving forward, if you are going to go ahead with Twitter chats? Which Twitter chats are you going to be participating in, and how are you going to be engaging otherwise? Are you going to be joining new lists? Because Twitter, I've noticed now, is showing you lists. For instance, if you are targeting female marketers, you can easily get lists to list on Twitter on female marketers. Join that and engage with that list. And you have to decide who you're going to be commenting on, and if your engagement plan is to be via leaving thoughtful comments or jumping in other people's conversations. You just have to decide what your plan is. And lastly, which is very important, is how do you think you're going to gain your audience's trust? So that's linked to all of what we've decided above on what we've discussed so far. How will you be gaining your audience trust? What sort of content will you provide? What sort of conversations will you drive? What will you be sharing, etc.? So do these, and I am positive that you will be able to see results in a very short time. Just make sure that you are not stalking people or making them feel like you're deliberately pursuing them. Please don't do that, and keep it as real as possible. That's about it. I hope you found this useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Masooma. That webinar was so useful. Lots of practical Twitter tips in there. What we're now going to do is jump into a Q&A. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, we asked lots of people on, of course, Twitter questions to put forward to you, and I've got a few of my own as well.
Yeah.
So we will talk for about 10-15 minutes and go through the questions that we've got here. That sounds good to you?
Yep, absolutely.
Brilliant. So I'll start off with one of my own. So you've worked with, as a content writer, you've worked with some impressive clients that are really big in the tech space, such as Hootsuite, Trello, Databox. I was just wondering if these clients, did you get those through Twitter? Do you think Twitter helped you get these?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that for Hootsuite, because they reached me directly via my email, and they mentioned reading my blog. So I'm not so sure where they saw me first, but for the rest of the clients, yes. We usually have someone either sees me on Twitter in a chat, like I mentioned in the presentation as well, that someone saw my comments on the chat, and they would then send me an inquiry that they want to work together. It's either that, or someone would post that we are looking for freelance writers, and I would just apply there. So that's how Twitter has helped me so far get clients in the tech space.
And have you found that's become a lot easier as your network has built? How about at the beginning? Was that a lot harder?
Yeah. Yeah, it has become a lot more better because there are referrals coming in. There are people on Twitter who know me. They read my content and they send clients my way. I've had that like a couple of times, and there have been some really good clients come that way. People would refer other freelancers or other people in the industry would refer them to me, and they'd say, "Yes, we know her." And there's the other thing that I think that is very important over here is that when people see that you have established authority in the field and that you have such a presence on social, they would see you as an authority and they would find it easy for them to trust you. Why? Because see, if when you're working with someone, you need to know that they are, regular, they are punctual, they would deliver work on time. All these things are easier to understand that the other person will be executing all that when you know that they have some presence in social, because obviously they're a professional. They will not risk their reputation if they're not serious about freelancing, because people could see, tweet that we worked with this freelancer. It's like with products, they leave a negative review, and but when you read on social, you see that people are saying, yeah, the good things about this person. It's easier to trust that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone can see big names have worked with you, they'll think, well, that big name would have had a thorough process, so they must be good. That really helps. Okay, let's jump into some of the questions we had on Twitter. The question from Jason Bradwell, who asked, what's the best way to find new connections on Twitter around shared interests?
Okay, I find that if you hop on to chats that are relevant to your interests and relevant to your industry, you will find a lot of new connections over there. And the point is to keep in touch with those people. You would find that those people that you're connecting with are also sharing names of other people that you should connect with. Like there's a Friday, #Friday follow thread that opens up. Then there are lists on Twitter. So you can connect people from over there. And I've also noticed that Twitter is now recommending lists to you. So if you're looking for people, like for instance, if you want to connect with female marketers, so there are lists that are specifically dedicated to female content marketers, and you can get into build a relationship with them from there. You can easily find. So the short answer for Jason would be, look for lists of people that you want to connect with in a specific industry, a specific interest, and to join Twitter chats, because those will help you meet the specific people that you want to in a specific interest as well as industry.
Great tips. And there's definitely lots of those Twitter chats for content marketers.
Yeah.
You have to share the list of women in content as well.
Yeah, I have that with me. I'll share that.
Yeah, I think they're useful to a lot of people. And another question from Jason. How do you balance time on Twitter with your day job?
Okay, so there are two ways that you can do that, and I do that as well. When you are reading content from your followers or something that interests you, save it in, there's another app, Pocket. It's pretty well known. You can save that. You don't have to read it during your day job. You can read it, like say lots of people start their day by reading content. So read that content and then you can comment on Twitter later on. So you're reading as well as building relationship with people. You're doing two things at a time. Okay, without letting it get into the way of your day job. And secondly, dedicate a few specific time slots when you would be on Twitter, that those would be for chats. Other than that, you can always what we say, join Twitter during your breaks. Say if you work for 25 minutes focus block, you take 5 minutes off, give 3 to 4 minutes, leave a couple of comments on Twitter, and then get back. So that's how I manage Twitter.
Okay. And when you say you're saving stuff to Pocket, so you go on Twitter, have a look at some interesting tweets, save a whole bunch of them to Pocket.
Yeah, what I do.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Yeah, what I do is I would like there lots of my followers share a lot of their content, so I would just click it, the link would open, I would save it in Pocket, right? It's in Pocket. I will read it during my time. Like I do most of my reading on the weekend. So when I'm done reading, I could either share the same content on Twitter, so that saves me time on what I am tweeting, one, and two, I could go back to that person I got the link from, and I will comment. I would, in this way you would be supporting that person. You would be showing your interest as well. Like I mentioned in the presentation, that you have to support people, read their content, and even share them. So this is what I meant.
Okay, you do that task in a block, usually on the weekend. You hit all of those up in one period, as opposed to scattering it through the day.
Yeah, and I find that if you are working on something and then you find something interesting to read, but you read it in between, it's gonna break your flow. So
Yeah.
what I do is save it for later.
Yeah, I think that's really important with social media, because it's very easy to get sucked into being reactive all the time and then not getting actual work done.
Yeah.
I guess a question that I had along those lines is, how do you maintain a healthy relationship with social media? And do you have set hours in the evening where you just completely switch it off so that you can't access social?
Yeah, good question. What I usually do is for my, uh, balance, what I do is Monday to Thursday, I am active on Twitter. Fridays, I would be, sort of active, sort of inactive. I would be leaving comments if I do get the time. Otherwise, half of the Friday, and Saturdays and Sundays, the weekends, I'm not active on Twitter. So this way I get I kind of call it a social detox, so that I don't feel like too overwhelmed with being on Twitter all the time, as well as I'm giving it my time as well. And the second part you asked about evenings, that just depends. If some of my target audience is in a time zone that falls with my time zone, that is in the evening, I will log in. And usually what I do is, when I'm working during the day, I would not join Twitter. Like for 2-3 hours, those are my complete focused work hours. And when you're writing, you can just, when you're in the flow, you can't go hop onto Twitter. So I would just sign off, and I would cancel all notifications, make sure they don't distract me at that time. That's how I try to maintain a healthy relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very valuable, because a lot of people do struggle with that. Okay, moving on to a question from Kyla.
Mhm.
Says, I'm curious about how to build better relationships outside my vertical. My whole feed is peer marketers slash content folks, which I love, but I want 1, connections with potential clients, 2, connections with journals, 3, a broader topic network.
Mm-hmm. So she's mentioning clients. First, let's tackle the easy one, the broader network. Join Twitter chats. You would find lots of people. Like I know people who are in the video industry. I know people who are coaches, and all this broad network comes from being in a Twitter chat, because Twitter chats bring a lot of people together. For instance, there's this Twitter chat hashtag Twitter Smarter, and there are people coming from different walks of marketing. So you can broaden your network over there when you join such a chat. Because if there's a chat that is specifically for freelancers, you're only getting freelancers in your network. But when you join chats like the one I mentioned just right now, you can connect with lots of different people, right? That's one point. Then she mentioned how I could connect with clients. That's pretty much similar to how you connect with people on LinkedIn. You can look up a company's employees, see who your target audience is, then connect with them on Twitter. Before you follow them, I would suggest that you leave a couple of comments, see how active they are, then leave a couple of comments. Once they get to know you, follow them. This increases the odds of them following you back and remembering you. So that's how I would suggest you connect with clients. And what was the third category she mentioned?
Connections with journals.
Okay. If there are specific in your mind, it's good that you go on to follow them and engage with them. And otherwise, you can always use specific hashtags to connect with journals. If she's specifically looking for getting, contributing to journals, she can also um, follow these hashtags that are journal request hashtag, where she can see people are looking for contributions to journals, and she can share her opinion and get featured in those journals as well.
Yeah, that's really important. And what about if you want to connect with people, say like your target audience aren't marketers?
Mm-hmm.
Encourage getting involved in conversations with them, even though you don't feel like you understand their industry. Let's say it's developers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any experience with that?
No, I would say that because with marketers, I find that they're active on Twitter. So I am hanging out where they are.
Mm.
With developers, you need to find out where they are. It's possible that they are on Q&A platforms like Reddit or Quora. So you could go there instead of, spending time on Twitter. So know where your audience is very important before you join Twitter. Because if your audience is not on Twitter, you would not be able to make any use of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you like Twitter as a medium doesn't mean your target audience love it as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Question from Gia Cataneo. How do you casually initiate a Twitter conversation?
Okay, I find that it's very much like you initiate conversations in real life. First, visit that person's profile, see what their interests are. You could either find it in their bio. Lots of people share what they're interested in their bio, or you could read the tweets and somewhere, or the tweets and comments, tweets and replies section, and you will find what they're interested in. Once you know what they're interested in, you can easily strike a conversation related to that topic. And when you're starting to talk with them, you will see that there are more mutual, or even not mutual interests, but the interests that are coming forward. So when you know what the other person is interested in, you can, grow the conversation on that. That is what I would suggest. Look for what they're interested in, then converse on them on those factors. So this way they would be more engaged in talking to you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Don't jump to a salesy thing, just go where they're at into their conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is from Sankit Vantamuri.
Mm-hmm.
Says, hi Masooma, I'm trying to discover how to generate traffic for my blog through Twitter, but that in a way that builds value and authority, not in a spammy, salesy way. You got any advice around that?
Yeah, I would say that you first look at who your target audience is and talk to them. Okay. Instead of sharing your blog post first, just talk around their interests. That would be one thing. Engage with your audience. Secondly, there are chats that are specific for bloggers. When you join those, they usually have blog sharing trains. I think those are on Sundays or Tuesdays. You need to give a track of those. When you share your blog post over there, you would be automatically getting good views from Twitter. But a good rule of thumb is when you're sharing your content and people are commenting on them, other bloggers are commenting on them, you need to make sure that you reciprocate. Read their stuff, comment, as well as share it wherever possible. Those would be two things I would say. One, knowing who your readers are, engaging with them. Two, joining blog chats. And third thing that I would say is when you're sharing that blog post, make sure that you are not just sharing a link and your blog. Don't do that. Tell them how hard you've worked on it. It's as an example of behind the scene content, or instill some curiosity. Tell them what's interesting in this, or tell them how far you've gone to do something. When you're writing tweets that instill curiosity or instill FOMO, they like make people feel that they are missing something, that will help them click through and go to your blog. But when it comes to getting traffic from Twitter, I would say it's not a very passive thing. You will have to build your community. You will have to engage with people. You will have to share the people's content, and you will have to take out the time. It won't be passive. You will not be able to just schedule it and let the traffic come. It won't be passive. It will be all active.
Yeah, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
And absolutely a good point about don't just share your post. As a common mistake people make, they just put the title and then a link, but really you should add some curiosity, like you say, or a tip, maybe one tip in that tweet in itself. So it's like, oh, that's valuable by itself. I think Alexandra Coate wrote a really good post about this, which I'll put a link to. About how to write your tweets when you're sharing them. And speaking of Alexandra Coate, nice segue. She's got a question. She said, how do you identify the right people to connect with and actually reach out to them without being intrusive? I'm curious to see if it's similar to what I do on LinkedIn or if there's something else that works.
Yeah, she's just answered it herself. I mean, she's going to it's best that you go to LinkedIn, see who the employees are, and then find them out on Twitter, connect with them. Let's say, for example, you want a job at some place, like you're looking for a job, you're an active job seeker, and it would be helpful to select a few of your target companies, look them up on Twitter, on LinkedIn, find out who the HR managers are who are responsible for hiring, then connect with them on Twitter. So when, let's say, you are constantly engaging with those people, you're leaving comments on their tweets, or talking to them actively, even if you've been able to take your relationship to direct messaging, when you send your application in their inbox, when it lands in the inbox, they will know you instantly, and they would be more likely to click and see what you have to share than otherwise being a complete stranger and applying to some place.
So do you apply for, say if you've got somebody in mind that you want to work with, I'm imagining that you don't connect with them that day and then apply the next day? You kind of have a strategy where you're going to build a relationship for how long do you usually leave them, where you're just building the relationship before you apply for a role or some work there?
I would say you should at least give it some time, a month or 2 or 3 months, whatever feels natural, because it's a slow process. Always relationship building is slow process. Even in real life, if you see it, you can't just go on one date and then propose the other person, right? So you have to be slow. It's going to take time. But I would say it also depends on how active the other person is on Twitter. For instance, if someone is posting weekly, so it will take time before you could reach out to them and say that I want to work with you. Versus someone who is active daily and you're meeting regularly on chats and they know you. So in a short time, you're growing your relationship this much instead of, the other way around. So you have to look at that point. Depends. So the answer is depends.
Yeah. And what if you've only got a week and there's a role that's come up and you just you need to apply that in that week because the job's going to go, what would you advise?
I would say just leave 1 or 2 comments a day, leave it for 2 to 3 days, then leave a comment and then apply. You won't be building a relationship in such a short time, but you will be able to throw your name in front of the other person. So they will be knowing you. Okay, they've seen you. Say, since it's a part of branding that you need to have a consistent picture on Twitter, on your email, on your website, you have to keep it same so that you're easily recognizable. So even if this person I'm applying to, I have only 1 week, doesn't know my name, they will remember my picture because that's how visuals work, right? So they will remember my image from Twitter. And then when they see my image pop up in their inbox, they'll be, okay, I know this person. I'm going to open and they'll be curious. And then the rest, your pitch or your application will do the job, the rest of it.
Okay, yeah, so it's consistency, even if it's over a short space of time, that's better than that. Shows initiative.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to a question from our cheetah, who is asking, what are your best Twitter tips for beginners?
Okay, I would say first, find out the right chats. Okay, this will give you people to interact with. When you are new to Twitter, I mean, I had the same. I did not know about Twitter chats, and I did not know who I was talking to or who was reading my stuff. But when I joined Twitter chats, it made sense because these other people are, they're interacting with me outside of the chat as well. So I have specific people to talk to, and I'm growing my network from there on. So first, find Twitter chats you want to join. Second, share things. It's very helpful if you take out a few minutes and decide what you're going to tweet about. Then send out those tweets regularly, even as you're new. It will pick, if it's something unique, it has your POV in it, it will pick pace and it will come into people's attention. So 2 things: join Twitter chats and tweet consistently. And I would also say that side by side, whoever your target audience is, just keep engaging on their content. Leave comments, share their work or read their work and tell them you've read them and what you like about it. So 3 things: join chats, leave comments on people's content, and third, share what you've learned or whatever your tweets are, whatever you plan to send out.
If someone is a beginner and they feel nervous because they haven't got many followers and then they post and no one really engages with it, what would you say to those people who are just too scared to start because they're so small?
Keep doing it. I did the same because I was not sure who was, like I said, who was my target audience. And it was like, crickets every time I posted on Twitter. So I would post about 5 times a day. Sometimes I get 4 likes, 3 likes. I'm like, okay, people are listening, but slowly it picks up. So when you're tweeting as well as joining chats, it will slowly and gradually pick up. Your account will pick up and people will start engaging. It's a slow process, of course. It's with every other network.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you haven't got lots of likes or engagements early on, just trust in the process.
Exactly.
Okay. And another question that I had was around Twitter scheduling. Do you use a tool to schedule your tweets? And also, what recommendations would you have for others who want to use a tool?
No, I don't use Twitter schedulers. What I do is I say whatever, if there's something coming to my mind, I would write it out in my mobile app, right? Because that app, I think the desktop version also allows you to do this now. But what I normally do is I would, take my phone, save the tweet over there in my phone, and just keep it over there. Then whenever I feel that my audience is active or I've been in a chat and now I want to tweet, I would just send it out without a scheduler.
Okay. So you just, no scheduler at all. Okay.
No.
Cool. And what other questions have we got? A long one here from Jeeves. Okay. Beyond the general conversational approach, what can businesses, particularly B2B ones that seek to work with freelancers, what can they offer the freelance community on Twitter to be less salesy and more outright helpful, engaging, and genuine? Specifically as a brand, not a person. Engaging as a person incurs less suspicion or wariness, I find. I'd love to hear your thoughts on engaging with the freelance community as an entity like Upwork or The Dots.
Okay, so lots of freelancers on Twitter, so this is a very easy target market. Okay, so one, join the chats where they are. So this way you are, and join it from your your brand's handle. Okay, you don't have to join it from them. And when you're joining, always make sure that you're adding your name at the end of the tweet. This makes it easy for the other person to connect with you. Okay, one. And once you become a familiar name with freelancers by joining their chats, you can start your own chat. And when you do so, even with starting your chat and otherwise when you're tweeting, always ask freelancers or whoever your target audience is as to what their problems are or what they face problems, what are their pain points, etc. And then create content around that. You could be creating tweets, or you could always listen and create blog posts from there. Share those with your audience. Now you're solving their problem, so they will remember you better. Okay, so first you're personalizing your tweets by adding your name. Then you are creating your own chat as well as tweeting about problems, about about their pain points. This way you're developing yourself as an authority. And thirdly, now when obviously you have to make sales, so when you're joining Twitter chats, what you can do, when you have your own chat, what you can do is tell freelancers that for such a short time, we are offering this discount only for the chat participants. I have a very good example over here is Meet Edgar. It's a social app again. And they had a chat, which was solo biz chat. Okay. You can go, GVs can go over there and check what they used to do. They usually used to offer discount codes for chat participants. So that is a very good way to engage your community and as well as, make progress in your business.
Oh, that's really, really good stuff there. So making the brand like a human with your name. Exactly. And then, that's really, and then doing the chats and then the offers. That's really useful stuff for brands. And have you done this yourself for a brand? Have you experimented?
As in,
your clients?
No, I don't run social for my clients myself.
Okay, you just on the content yourself, but you've seen others as well.
Yeah, because I just keep a lot of since when I write, so I mainly offer blog post writing services. So when I do so, what happens is I could keep an eye on what people are doing and share those examples in my blog post, which is why I know all this. I keep an eye on them.
And actually, while we're on the topic, so in case there are people listening that would like to use you for your services in the future, what's your main speciality, Masooma?
It's blog posts, long form blog posts, 1,500 words to 3,000 words, guides, how-to content. I write those. And I mainly work in the SaaS industry. So, and I think anybody who wants to read my content, it's available on my blog as well as on my portfolio. So.
Amazing. Use Masooma. Works with lots of big SaaS names. Where were we? Yes. So, another question around, so you gave an example of Meet Edgar using Twitter really well. Are there any other examples of either brands or personal accounts that people should follow for inspiration?
Okay, so one, Meet Edgar, you'd have to see what they did in the chats. And second is Grammarly. They have some really good content. You can see how they're using visuals. You can see how they are exactly writing tweets that sound very relatable, very human. So if you want to learn how to write tweets and share your content, so you can look at Grammarly. And there's third, SEMrush. What they do is they share their content as well as grow their community. And when they write tweets, those are also very good. Like we were saying, you have to instill a sense of curiosity, share a tip, etc. You can read all those types on Samrush's Twitter profile. 3 of those examples. And there is awesome content, awesome female marketers. That's a list that you can join for people you want to share. Or most of the marketers in that list have really engaging Twitter profiles. So you can look up those. And there is Matthew Gabach, I think, Kobach. So Matthew shares really good stuff. You can learn how to write tweets or how to engage with your community from him. These people.
Thank you. Good list of people there. We'll make sure we'll include those in the notes below. And we're coming to the end of some of the questions here. So what have we got? Okay, another one that I had was around, so you've spoken a lot about how to use Twitter to build relationships for getting clients. What about using Twitter to help with the actual creation of a piece of content and then distributing that piece of content? How do you use Twitter for that?
Yeah, so I have a 2-part answer for them for this question. One is creation. What you can do is use specific hashtags to understand. Let's say you're doing a blog, you want to find out what people are worried about when it comes to productivity. Search for the hashtag and you will know what problems people are facing. This way you will be able to get, for creating content, you will be able to get the exact idea what is bothering people, and you will be able to create content that is relevant to them, solves the problem, 1. And 2, you can, even if you're not joining Twitter chats, you can just look at them and understand what people are talking about. Take each question or take one chat and convert that into a blog post. I've done that for myself as well. I have 2 blog posts on the blog, which are basically what I've learned on the chat and what my take is about those questions that were asked in the chat. So that's another thing. And 3rd point, for creating content, you can always use Twitter as a way to connect with the experts. For instance, I leave a lot of tweets where I ask people how, if they want to contribute to some blog post that I'm doing. I did it for my blog as well. I have it as my pinned tweet where I did a blog post asking other people in the writing field to share their writing tip. This is how I put together an entire blog post by asking people to do it. And there is this other person I noticed, we'll share it in the link. You can add it in the link in the notes. It's I think it's a SaaS company, and what they did was they shared tweets. They gathered, I think, 20 tweets or 11 tweets, and they said that this is what experts are saying about content marketing in 2020. So this is another way. This is an exact sourcing tweets, adding your opinion, and that's how you're creating content. So you have at least 4 ways you can create content via Twitter. And then as far as distribution is concerned, we talked about having a community so that when you are connected to your readers, they will read your stuff rather than, tweeting about it and getting crickets. And then the second point, which is very important, is you can always check out Grammarly and Samrush to see how they do it. What they do is they either instill curiosity, they would share a couple of tips and say, for more, read this blog post, etc. So you have to be careful about this part. For distribution, develop your community, grow your community, or be part of already established communities. And second, write good tweets. Take the time to write the tweet.
Yeah, that does help as well. Don't forget the good copy as much as all the other bits.
Yep.
Okay, I think that is most of the questions. I'm just scanning through if there's anything that we missed here. I think you answered, because we do have a few others, but I think you answered most of them in your answers already. So that will be all of them for today. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't asked?
No, I think that's about it. Just one last thing I would say, always remember to be consistent on your Twitter. You mentioned tips for beginners who don't get any response on their tweet. You have to trust in the process and be consistent.
Yeah.
Because if I had left Twitter, because at that point I was feeling what beginners feel when I started Twitter, I could have left it and it is not for me. But I stayed with it and I reaped. So I would suggest you do the same. Stay with it, be consistent, add your voice, and you would, get a lot from it.
Yeah, you've definitely been consistent. I remember seeing you on Twitter a few years ago, Masooma, and you've can see how you built such a network over time, and you kept it up. So it's good to see you reaping the rewards.
Thank you.
Okay, Masooma, thank you very much. It's been lovely speaking to you, and I'm sure everyone's taken a lot out of that and has some good tips to take away. And we'll add all the links that you've mentioned in the notes below.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.